Welcome everyone, Chris here. Thanks for coming by. We're actually going to create a wonderful seascape painting today along with a city scene. Kind of like a wonderful tutorial here with the glazing technique. So we're going to cover the glazing technique in detail, and then we're going to incorporate a lot of details. We're going to cover all the colors you may need with the washes. We're going to use a photograph from my book, Methods for Success. So we're going to clip this right out of my book. This will be on camera at all times up above here, so you'll be able to see this as you're working. And then we also have our palette that we're going to use, so you'll see everything here on camera, and you'll see all of the step-by-step details to create this wonderful painting. Hope you'll enjoy it, and we'll get started right now. All right, we just saw that finished painting. Now we're going to cover all the details that you need to create this painting. So let's get started. We just have some beautiful colors here. This is actually from the Seascape palette. I happen to like to tinker around with my palettes. I don't know if everyone is really too excited about something like that, but basically this here is the lid for this palette, which is the Anderson palette. Most of my art supplies are down below in the description box below. I can say that all the art supplies I put in my description box below, and they're actually links to Amazon. Amazon has all the art supplies you can ever imagine on there. So I buy all my art supplies from Amazon for the most part. They have everything. So basically this is the Anderson palette. It's an aluminum palette, metal palette. I basically just separated the top part of this palette here with all of the wells, removed that, and now I just have this large mixing area, which is the top of the palette, the lid of the palette. Perfect. Then what I did next was I used this Seascape palette, and a lot of times I'll take my Seascape palettes, I'll purchase the new Seascape palette like this, and I'll take out the pans that are in the palette here. I'll take them out of here, and then I put them right here like this. So that's where I got these pans from, this palette stock. And then eventually I take my empty palette and I just put all of the colors that I choose to with some pans that I bought from Holbein. Holbein sells large and small watercolor pans like this. So I just basically take these and double stick tape them with double stick heavy duty outdoor double stick tape. I put the double stick tape in the bottom, and then I stick these in here like this on top. And then I just configure them like this. So that's just kind of some things I do with my palettes. I hope you'll experiment if you want to. If not, no big deal. But that's how I got to this bit of colors here with my pan like this. And so let's get started. So here we're going to cover basically, incidentally, just a quick tidbit of information. I did clip this painting out of my watercolor book, Watercolor Methods for Success. This has been out about a year or more now, my book, and it's fantastic. And if the links below, you can see a quick 2-minute video, and you'll see every single page of my book in that link below if you decide you want to purchase my book, because it's just oodles of great paintings. Portraits, if you like portraits, tons of seascapes, lighthouses, oceans, gorgeous boat scenes, shore scenes, beach scenes, lighthouses, everything you love here is in this book. You can just have years of just painting we have wonderful, beautiful beach scenes and boat scenes, but again, you'll see the 2-minute video below, and you'll see all of the paintings in there in my book. You could have, again, years of fun working with all of the subject matter in my book. But we're going to start on this one, and I did clip this painting right out of my book. So let's do this. Let's kind of just take a look here quickly. We're going to get painting in just a second, but let's get the drawing first done, the pencil drawing. So here we have halfway is basically like the bulk of the bottom of the painting. The water and the buildings is about halfway. So that's simple enough. We just make a little mark here halfway, about halfway here on our tape. So I have my watercolor arches rough paper here taped down to my watercolor working surface, and I just make a point halfway, just like we have here, halfway. About halfway here. That's where most of the information is. So then we're just going to come right in here, halfway, and just start coming down here and tracing along, kind of coming up, and then there's another bit of information here, some buildings. And I'm just basically what we call contour drawing. I'm just looking at my subject matter here and just making sure that I'm kind of following along slowly and carefully the same kind of shapes that I'm seeing here. So I'm seeing a shape here, and then now I'm starting to see this main spire up here, and this main part of the building here, like that. So you can kind of see I'm just following along. I'm like taking my time doing a contour drawing, which is basically just slowly traveling through my picture with my pencil and following what I'm seeing here. So I'm looking back and forth, back and forth, back and forth as I go. So I'm looking here, I take my pencil, I stop, I say, okay, I have to sort of start moving up here now. Now I come over here and I say, all right, now I have this kind of like, this looks kind of like a spire here. So I'm going to come up here and do this spire here. And then I come across here, and then I'm looking here, looking back and forth. I'm keeping my eye on my pencil as I go across. Then I look up here and I say, okay, this is the main feature of the painting, which is like a large dome and a large section of the building, a dome, and then a spire on top. So I'm going to kind of do that, look at that, follow it along. And the thing is, you don't have to do everything super accurate. You just kind of get it close to what you're seeing. Then here I know I'm sort of right about here where I made this top portion of this building over here. It's going to kind of be about the same over here. So once I come down here, then I say, okay, about when I get here, can you see that, how I'm doing that? I'm referencing all the time as I go. So as I'm going across, I come up here and I see, well, yeah, my spire is right to the top of the painting. So I make my spire to the top of the painting, and I come back down, and I can kind of see that the dome on the top here is sort of like that. And then I come down here, and then I notice, all right, when I stop here, it's going to be about the same level as over here. So I stop about there, and I come across, and you can kind of see I go across about here, about that much, and then I start to trail it down like this and come down like this, and then I almost like hit the area where we're going to have the ocean. And that's about a quarter of the way down. So the ocean horizon line where the ocean is about a quarter of the paper. So the quarter mark is about here. So you can kind of see that. That's the quarter mark. That's the bottom quarter, halfway, and 3/4. And this is the full top. So basically we have this broken down almost like a recipe, if you will. If you're making, we're making a cake, we're making a soup, we're making some dinner, and we say, oh, we need a 1/4 cup of this, we need a 1/2 cup of that, we need 3/4 of a cup of such and such, and then we need some, that's how we're doing it. We're just making it increments, 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, and a full. So the full is the entire vertical, like that, of our rectangle, and then we come across here, and the same thing, vertical up here, and across here. And that's basically what we're going to do. We're going to kind of section things a little bit so that we kind of make it a little bit easier for ourselves. So the 3/4 mark is like kind of where the top is of the dome, like that. Here, 3/4 is about the top of the dome. Halfway is about where the buildings are that are kind of coming across the drawing, and then it drops down, and then about 1/4 of the way is where the ocean is. So now we have the horizon line of the ocean here, like so. So now you can see, and then for here, if you want to have a little more accuracy, you could take a ruler. You can take a ruler and go across to get your ocean a little, straight across like this. So we'll get our ocean horizon line like that across at the quarter mark. So you can kind of see this is pretty basic. We make some hash marks, 1/4, half, 3/4, full height of the rectangle. And then maybe here, if we go across, we would say the halfway point is about here, and you can kind of see that our dome and city scene is kind of centered on the painting for the most part. Maybe not perfectly centered, but it's somewhat centered. I kind of have it a little bit off center, this dome and spire here. We could always double check and say, well, where is the exact halfway point? We could take a ruler and go across here and say, well, this is the 9 inches is the entire, so 9 inches is the entire width of our rectangle like this. So half of 9 inches is 4.5 inches. So 4.5 inches is right here on the ruler, about there. And you can see that 4.5 is the center point of this rectangle. And then that's where we have the main dome, building, and spire a little bit left of center, just a little bit off center, so it's not exactly center, and that's kind of good. We would want that. A little bit off center is a little bit better, instead of exactly symmetrical where it's exactly in the center. Okay? Just a little tidbit of information if you want to, but you're the artist. You're going to create your paintings the way you would like to. Maybe you want it exactly center in your painting, and that might be fine too. It's up to you, but I like to have things a little bit off center. Makes it for me a little bit better. Okay, so now we have our pencil drawing completed. Maybe we'll just put some of these masts of these sailboats over here. There's some sailboats and things like this over here on the horizon line of the ocean. So we're going to have some sailboats over here, some masts. And that's good. So we have a little interesting information over here a little bit. Along the shoreline here, some masts and a couple sailboats and some other fishing boats and things over here. And then this over here is more of the buildings and the land and the city scene over here. Okay. All right. We're ready to go. We're going to be painting in just a second. So let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll show you how we're going to mix up our colors. We're going to mix up some beautiful colors that are going to work perfectly for this painting. We'll show you all the steps and the methods, the techniques you're going to need to create this painting with your watercolors. We're going to use a simple one brush to do this painting, perhaps 2 brushes maybe, and that's it. And we'll mix the colors right from all of these colors right here. We'll explain all the colors we're going to use. We're going to mix up our colors first and then transfer them over to the painting. Okay, all right, so we'll be right back. All right, let's get ready to paint. The first thing I just wanted to mention was quickly, we're going to be using what's called the glazing technique. So I just wanted to kind of jot this down quickly. I hope you'll write this in your notes. Glazing technique. And I cover this in my book extensively, as well as the alla prima technique, but we're going to focus right now on the glazing technique. So this is the basic format we're going to use for painting this painting. What we'll do is we'll pour some fresh water in our water bucket. So I have a water bucket here. I'm going to fresh clean water, tons of fresh clean water. I always keep my water bucket full of fresh clean water, and I change it often when I'm painting. Then the next thing we'll do is we're going to just dampen the paper, the whole entire paper. This happens to be a number 10 Raphael Kolinsky Sable watercolor brush. You can use any watercolor brush you have. You don't need anything special. This is just some of the brushes that I use, but in any case, I'm going to take my brush and just put a lot of fresh clean water in it and just basically dampen the whole entire paper. So I just go back in, and I don't worry about if there's some sediment or something like that in my water pail. Sometimes you'll find there might be a little bit of sediment or whatever, but I don't worry about things like this. Watercolor is really fun, and you don't have to worry about little kind of things that happen along the way, because in the end, when you're done with your painting, everything looks wonderful and beautiful, so you don't have to worry. So I just dampen the whole entire watercolor paper like this. Just quickly, not a ton of water, just one kind of coat of fresh, clean water over the entire surface, and that is it. That's all you have to worry about. Then when you do that, you let it sit for a few seconds or so. And while this sits here, you know, sometimes if there's a little puddle of water on the bottom, you just wipe that up like this or whatever, you know, if you find a couple little spots that might be dripping or some puddles or something like that. But for the most part, I just dampen the paper, the whole entire surface of the paper. Then what I do next is I come over here and we'll start mixing our colors, and I just notice right away I'm going to start getting my sky color started with some of this blue, and this looks like a French ultramarine blue basically. So that's going to go up top here in my palette, French ultramarine blue, and then I sort of check on other, this might be a little bit of a Payne's gray over here, so we'll make a little bit of Payne's gray, that's fine. There's a little bit of green here, so I'm kind of mixing some blues, but I want to mostly keep it that French ultramarine blue, and you don't worry about it if you splash around a little bit. So let's just call this our sky wash like this, with a touch of orange, maybe a little bit, or a little bit of tiny bit of red, just to have a little bit of grayish kind of color to it too. So if we add a little bit of red to our blue over here, you can kind of see we're mixing a good bit of color there. And have fun with your colors, don't worry about it. It doesn't have to be exact or perfect or anything like that. Then as we see, we have tons of colors here. We'll use all the blues as well for the sky in the buildings and the water. And then we're going to kind of start getting our, maybe some water colors here in the bottom. Some of the colors of the water, kind of greenish. So we're going to put some green down here, like this. Some green, maybe some yellow. So we're going to have some green, which is kind of like a warm green, like an olive green. And then over here, some yellow. And then, of course, we're going to have that more cooler green down here, like this. The more cooler green with some blue in there. Like that, some blue in the green. So basically we have a cool green, which is kind of bluish green. And then we have our kind of a warm green, a cool green, then a warm green like this. You can kind of see there's some warm greens, some cool greens in the water, in the buildings, and then some red too, some red and like this. So we'll put some red and yellow in there in the center for some variety of colors. So you can kind of see we've put our colors out first on our palette. Now the key right here is to get some light washes on the whole entire paper, and then once that light wash goes on, then we let it dry, and then we'll come back and we'll add some of the darker tones here. So let's do that. Let's go in here and kind of, you can see we did the, so I'm mixing in some fresh clean water here with our colors. Like that. Some nice grayish blues and then some straight blue like that. So we go in with a little bit of straight blue like this. And then you see we have some of that grayish blue here too. So we just want to have a nice mixture of high intensity blue here and there. And then also some of that grayed down blue, which was mixed with a little bit of red, and we come right into the buildings, and we kind of just bring that all right down into the painting like this. And you just kind of give a good coating of that first bit of color, and you also want to have some greens and some reds and some blues like this. Okay. And again, this is really fun. You have a good time with the colors. You can see I'm just enjoying myself here. I'm just getting some colors on the paper. I'm not worrying too much about exactly where all the colors are landing on the paper. I'm just kind of, we're going to go over it. We're going to let this dry and go over with another coat of paint on top of this. If you find you need to blot up a little bit of water, sometimes you need to blot up a little bit of water, no problem. You take a tissue like this and you bunch up a tissue or a paper towel, and if you have to blot up some water, if some things start to blossom out or have problems, don't worry. Just lift up some paint and water from your painting with a tissue or a paper towel so that you don't lose control of the washes. But as you'll see here, I'm going to try to mix up the colors like this all the way through. I've mixed all of the mixtures of colors on this, and even a little bit up in the sky. I would add a little bit of that red and orange up in the sky a little bit too, so that all of the whole painting has all of the colors mixed together harmoniously across the whole painting. So add a little bit of that orange and red into the sky, even though you might think, oh my gosh, I don't see any orange or red in the sky. Well, add it anyway, because you have it down here, right? You have orange and red down here in the painting. We're going to need to add it a little bit anyway, here and there in the sky, just so all the colors are mixing around the whole painting, because it kind of looks really awkward if we, does this make sense? It looks kind of awkward if you have like just one color at the top of the painting and then one color at the bottom of the painting. One of the big takeaways with watercolors, you want to take all of your colors and mix all of them all around your painting all the time. So you never want to just have one color at one location in your painting. You want to mix all of your colors everywhere in your painting, your watercolor painting. So if you use a little bit of red down here, orangey red, use some orangey red up here, 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 up here in the sky, over here in the sky, a little bit up here in the sky, a little bit over here in the building, so that you have a little bit of that orange red around the whole painting kind of working for you. Does that make sense? And the same thing with the blue. We used all of the blue up here in the sky in green, and now all of the blue and green down here in the bottom of the painting. So now it's just a matter of letting this dry 100%. So this is the point where you let this dry for 2-3 hours, or you can use a blow dryer and blow dry this whole painting off right here within 5-10 minutes with a blow dryer, and you can start with your secondary washes, which are going to get your darker tones and tonal values in here. So that's what we're going to show you next. But this is the first part. The first part of the glazing technique is getting that first wash on the paper. And then once you have that first wash on with all of the basic colors we're going to use, then after that we let this dry 100%, either by letting it dry for 2 hours or 3 hours or overnight or a week or two, doesn't matter. But it needs at least like 2 or 3 hours to dry. Then once it's dry, then you can go over and do your darker darks. So you can see all your darker darks here. We're going to use darker, thicker, rich paint here for our darks. We're not going to use as much water as we used here in the first part. So that's another thing we're going to learn coming up next in the second part of the video, I guess, or the next part of the video. So we're going to take a quick break. Either you're going to let this dry for a couple hours or so, or you're going to take a blow dryer and use the blow dryer, dry it off, and we'll come back. Okay, but in any case, I'm going to use the blow dryer so that I can keep working here and keep working on this painting with you, together with you, and then I'll be able to finish up here. Okay, all right. So let's take a quick break, and then I'll be right back. All right, this is sort of like part 2. The first part, I guess, well, it could be this could be part 3, really. The first part would, let's say, be the pencil drawing. For part 1, pencil drawing. Part 2, first light wash of watercolor paint across the whole painting. And like we said, this is the glazing technique. So again, I wanted to mention that you can use different techniques in watercolor. There's many professional watercolor artists that will kind of, they'll explain how they'll use like different techniques, either like alla prima techniques or glazing techniques or wet and wet methods. But basically, I find that they fall into 2 categories: glazing technique and also alla prima technique. So this painting is actually the glazing technique, which basically we're doing one light wash across the whole painting, and then we're letting it dry 100%. I use the blow dryer to dry off this entire paper, so now it's completely 100% dry. On the break, when we took the break, I did the blow dryer. Again, you can let it dry, naturally. If you don't want to use a blow dryer, you can let it dry for 2-3 hours and then come back and start painting again. It's up to you, or the next day, or so forth. But in any case, we have that part 2 done, first light wash, and now part 3 is the darker tonal values. You can kind of see that this painting has basically 2 or 3 maybe like tonal values in the painting. You have your lightest lights over here in the sky, which we have here. Then you start to have your medium tonal values, which are here and there. And then you have your darkest tonal values, which are here, like the dark spire and the dark top here to this dome and spire here, and some of these darks here, and the darks of the masts of the boats, and some of the shoreline is darks, which is the darkest tonal values in the painting. So now we're going to cover how you're going to put in your darkest darks right now. So we have our lightest lights in and our medium tonal values, which are the medium tonal values. Now let's do our darks, and then once we're done with our darks, we're done with the painting, and we're actually going to have a wonderful and beautiful painting here. So I just changed out my water in my water bucket, so you can kind of see I have fresh, clean water now again in my water bucket. I changed my brush to a smaller brush. I'm using a Da Vinci travel brush, Kolinsky Sable travel brush. I think this is a number 6 brush here, round brush. Next thing we want to do is we want to dry, well, we want to clean this here actually. So we'll take a paper towel and we'll just go in and we'll kind of just tidy up our palette a little bit here. And the reason why is we want to kind of, right now we're going to work with dark tonal values, which means we're just going to use basically straight paint. We're not going to use hardly any water at all at this point. So that's why we want to set ourselves up for success by taking our palette and cleaning off all those puddles of water. Because if we start mixing colors in our palette and there's bunches of puddles of water in here, chances are we're going to lose control of those washes. That's why I'm taking all that paint, all that watery paint that we used for the first glazing, and I'm drying that all off now. And now you're going to see how we're just going to use basically very much just straight paint without much water at all. So I'm just going to go in with a damp brush and just start getting some colors here. So we're going to go in and get some of that blue that we started with. We're going to want to use that, and then there's a little bit of the I think that's that might be a little bit of Pines Gray, or that's Pines Gray there, and this is Ivory Black, and then we have blue, French ultramarine blue, and then over here we have a little bit of a, looks like a Prussian blue there. So we have some really good darks here. Then we can put in some greens too. But the thing is, I'm just sort of putting out the colors so you can see what we're going to use here. I'll have a tissue handy here. So I'm going to have a tissue handy to dry off some of the water off my brush. But I'm basically going to go in and get some blue, black, blue, Russian blue, a little bit of red here. And I'm just going to use basically straight paint. I'm not going to use much water at all. And you can kind of see how I'm going to start just using that dark paint to establish those darks in the painting. Like that. And then once you have some of those darks, then you can sort of lighten them up a little bit. You can get some red, warmer colors going over here. And you can use some, you want to mix up your warm and cool colors. So you have your cooler blues and greens, and then you have your reds and yellows. So maybe make sure you have fun with your colors, mix them up. Don't try to stick with one or two colors. Get some really good colors mixing. Okay, so you can kind of see how I've done this. And we're just getting some darks now up here. Like this. And then over here, I think we have some really good darks. Let's do that. Let's get some darks here. So I'm just using this as my reference here. Once I have this here, just like this, then I notice I break into some blue. Like that. Maybe some warm colors now. We don't want to have everything cool. Let's get some warm and cool mixing at all times. So you can kind of see now I'm infusing some red and yellow. Like that. And then maybe some more darks here. Like that. Because I'm seeing there's some darks in here. So that's cool and warm. Like that. And then I make it more watery over here. Since this is all water down below here, so if you can imagine, we did create that in the beginning when we did our pencil line. We went all the way across with our pencil line like this. That was our horizon line for our water. So that water line goes all the way across. So now we know that whatever we make below this line is going to be water. We can make it more free and fun. Like this. We could just drip some water on there like that. Splash on some water. Like this. Like that. And then what we'll do is we'll also make some darks here. Down here. Sort of making this dark down here, like that a little bit. And the same thing over here. There might be a little bit of dark down here. And we're going to want to put some of that. So splash on lots of water at your water area where you have your water below the water line here. So you have your horizon line for your water. Anything below is your water. And then here, we still have some darks up here. So you can kind of see I'm going to make some darks here, just like over here. And then some warm, because I'm making cool and warm. that. Okay, so you can kind of see we mix things up here with warm and cool colors, darker. Okay, so this is some sailboats and things. Infuse some dark, warm and cool colors too. You don't want to have everything all cool. You want to have some warm too. Some reds in here, like that. Same thing over here. Put some little bits of red in the painting, and yellow. Make some yellow. Get some yellow in there. Make some colors around. Really make your paintings beautifully colorful and okay, and then here we have darker darks. Okay, so right now this is a little bit wet. Let's let that dry down below. Okay. Then if you need a really fine point brush, you can also get a very, very small brush like this, a very, very fine point brush. Straight paint, no water. And then you can get some really fine points like this. Like that. No water, just straight paint. Twirl your brush, twirl that point around of your very, very fine small brush. This happens to be a Princeton number 3 Aqua Elite. Princeton Aqua Elite. I think I have some of those listed down below in the description box below. So you can get yourself some really, this is student level brushes. These are wonderful brushes. They handle incredibly well. They last a long time. And again, I will always say that anything I put in my description box below for my art supplies, these are top quality art supplies that I've used over the last 15-20 years, and they work phenomenally well and they last a long time. I'm not going to put them in my description box and sort of promote them if they're not really, really high quality. So these are high quality and really cost effective too, because they're not extremely expensive. So I'm always looking for the best quality for a fair price, and that's what these brushes will offer you. Okay, so you can see that we've got some really, really good, fine lines here. Calligraphy, fine calligraphy. You want that in your paintings. You can do some fine calligraphy over here too. You might have some other little features here and there that you'll see in your paintings. Like that. You might have a little bit of ornamentation you want to put on your paintings. That's fine. I encourage that. You know, maybe we'll have a little water tank here. Okay, so okay, the only thing I think we need to do is let this dry a little bit right here. This paper right here was a little bit damp, but I want to take these masts of these boats and these sailboats here, and I want to make sure that I put those reflections in below into the water. And And I think once we have that, we are all set. And I just put some of the dark over here like this. Toward the edge of your paintings, you don't want to have anything too interesting, really. More of the interesting things happen in the middle of your painting. You want to kind of keep the focus of your interest in your painting sort of in the center. So if you can kind of mellow out your edges of your painting on the sides, that's better yet. So if you can kind of mellow out your sides of your painting, or kind of keep those calm, the sides of your paintings calm, and then right here in the center you keep more of the interesting information. And again, you want to, warm and cool everywhere. You don't want to have just warm colors or cool colors by themselves. You want to have sort of everything working together for you to help your painting look absolutely the best it can look. All right, so I think the only thing we'll do is we'll come back in a few minutes and we'll get some reflections of these sails and these masts of these boats here along the coastal area here where there's a seaport, and we have some beautiful fishing boats and sailboats and interesting things going on here. We want to have those reflections, but you can kind of see right now that the paper's a little bit damp here. So if we can let this dry a little bit over here, we could use a blow dryer to dry this off a little bit, and we'll get these reflections down in here. We'll be all set and the painting will be done. Okay, so let's come right back in about maybe 10 or 15 minutes. We'll use a little bit of a blow dryer to dry off this water area here, this section right here, and then we'll put our reflections of these, again, boats and sailboats and masts and things like this along the seaport down into the water, and we'll be all set.